I've been working heavily on my golf game, but consistency is key out here on the golf course. Hi everyone, my name's James Robinson. Welcome back to Get Good at Golf, and welcome back to the weekly hack, where we put hack motion to its paces and see exactly how it can help me, help Chris, and help you with your game. Today we're going to take it out on the golf course and see just exactly what numbers we get with our wrist movements on the golf course when it counts under the gun, and Chris is going to explain those to us and see exactly why it's important potentially to know them. So if you're working with the hack motion device yourself, you can get down into the bones of not only your bad shots but your good shots. I think it's so important to know what your good shots are so you can bottle them up and you can then start to provide very consistent golf swings. So what is a consistent golf swing? I feel like a consistent golf swing is consistent throughout. So it's a consistent setup position, it's a consistent movement, it's a consistent top of the backswing, and of course it is a consistent impact position. If you do all those things correctly, you're going to have a what?
A consistent shot.
A consistent ball flight. Chris has nailed it on the head. I thought you were going to say headache, but from here, we're going to aim just over this left-hand tree, let it fade naturally back into the middle of the fairway, and we're going to see exactly what our wrists do with the driver. So I know that it's going to be slightly extended at address. What do we have there, Chris?
We have 24 degrees of extension.
24 degrees, so very similar to what I would be with an iron. So I'm not trying to add more extension here, add more backward shaft lean. I'm also not trying to add more forward shaft lean and trying to flex that wrist, because that opens the club face up, de-lofts it. That's what a lot of people will tend to do if they're slicing the ball. So we don't want to do that. What a nice consistent setup position. So I walk back into that. You'll see how I'm going through my pre-shot routine here as well. Pre-shot routine is key. If you can match up your numbers time after time by using something like the hack motion device, it can really help with the routine, but also with that impact position and top of the backswing position, and of course setup position, almost in reverse order. How are we, Chris?
We're up there at 30, so between 20 and 30 was the realms. You are at 30 exact.
Okay, the exact ball flight I wanted, just a nice fade down into the middle of that fairway. If we start to look at the numbers there, we will see.
So you can see on the side of the screen there, we have got your address position at plus 15, which was a little bit different to when you was over the ball, so it has marked it just before you've taken.
Flatter wrist, isn't it? Ever so slightly.
Which is a little bit more neutral, which is exactly what we want. But we can see the shot shape we've just seen on screen, which I'll put on there now. You can see that it's a little bit of an over fade, we'd say. It's not a slice, but it's fading a little bit more than you thought. And we can see at the top of the backswing, we had a little bit too much extension, and the same at impact. So interesting that you can benchmark that. Right, I can see my pattern there, and this is where you then go into the drill sections. But let's see what it is with an iron.
Yeah. Okay, so now we are in the right-hand rough. I don't think it's a bad drive personally. Chris has it over-faded. I was quite happy with it, but they're the levels that potentially Chris wants us to work to. So we're going to hit a short iron now. We've got about 120 yards in. It's going to be interesting to see just how much difference we see in the wrist. So if you are practicing with your hack motion, if you are just working on your golf game, you will all know that the driver swing's a totally different swing to the iron swing. Because potentially what I'm going to want to see here is a very similar setup, but as we start to come down to impact, I'm going to want a little bit more forward shaft lean. So you might start to see that wrist bow just a little bit more through impact. We'll see if that does materialise. All of a sudden that green looks very small, Chris, to that front flag. So what do we see? Again, going through that routine nicely. I'll pull that one just a little bit. I'll be really interested to see just what those numbers say, Chris.
So we can see on screen at address, we had a little bit more extension at setup, and then as we came in, at the top of the backswing, different to the drive, it was actually too flex. So maybe that's because we've talked through those numbers, you've made a little bit of adjustments without knowing, but at impact, we were in the range, so we did have a little bit more flexion. You've compressed it a little bit better. So interesting there, again, start to benchmark what we are doing in different shots.
And very interesting to note that it doesn't always have to be a wrist issue, it doesn't always have to be a swing issue. Once you start getting very consistent with this, you can go, right, where was I aiming? What was my alignment like? You can see here my divot is pointing just to the left of the green, actually pointing exactly where the ball's finished. So realistically there, we then have to problem solve, why has that ball gone left? Is it because of my wrist? Is it because of my club face? Is it because of my club path? Or is it because of something else like the strike, or even just where I'm aiming? Let's go up there, let's see how this can help me around the greens and of course on the greens. Okay, so as you can see, we've missed the green to the left-hand side. It's not far away from being a good shot. If that ball lands here, then it takes that slope down nicely, although we were dicing with the bunker that fortunately isn't in play today. So it's placing, we'll have a go through that. Always go through placing and clean your ball if the rules say you can. So now I'm going to talk about chipping, and we actually did a whole video on how to use your wrists around the greens using hat motion, so I'll throw a couple of clips in for that now. But realistically here, this is quite a difficult shot. All I want to do is get this ball progressively moving, maybe with a little bit of check into this slope, and let the speed of the green take it down. So as soon as we look at this, I'll be really interested to see how my wrists want to work through a difficult shot like this. Weight forward, allow the club to release a little bit, and rotate around. You can see that's now going to work all the way down and hopefully give us a very simple putt to try and save par. Chris, what were the numbers like for my nice little simple chip out the middle of that face?
So you'll see the numbers there on screen. Again, at address, we can see we did have a little bit of extension as we expect, and we saw that it's a little bit too flexed on the way back and then extended on the way through. So we've closed the face down a little bit on the way back.
I'll admit it wasn't my best strike.
We've opened it on the way through. However, this is where you start to, like we said, get the benchmark. That might be a good chipping motion for someone if you're consistent at that. For James, it was a little bit of a bad swing. You can see that your bad pattern, which it's always been, gets a little bit inside, a little bit closed.
When I chip well, it's lots of rotation on the, it's almost more extension on the way back and get the bounce engaging.
Yeah, and keeping the loft on. But this is where, obviously, with hat motion, there's no one size fits all. It's all about knowing what you do with your wrists.
Okay, Chris, we've left ourselves a testing little 6-footer. So tour average from here would be how many?
From here, you're going to be looking at 50% for tour average. So again, with hat motion, we do have the putting setup. So I will switch over to the putting numbers now.
And you've just done a putting video on your channel, so if you want more in-depth on that, I will link it in the description below here on Get Good at Golf. If you want to see even more, get in the comments and ask, and we'll do so. So I'm going to go through my routine. This is just outside right, uphill, nice pace, about a ball to the right, and this should drop.
That's a solid putt right there. So you can see on screen there, we've got -9 for flexion in there. So for James, again, sometimes get his hands a little bit ahead of the ball, sometimes pushes those, but if he's used to that and consistent, he can adjust his aim accordingly. And again, ulnar and radial is how low or high he has his hands. How tall does the shaft get or how low does the shaft get? You can see there, obviously only 2 degrees. So certainly something that's consistent for James and something that he can work on.
So guys, I hope you've enjoyed that insight into my on-course practice using hat motion. If you have, make sure you do hit that subscribe button below. If you do want to use hat motion for yourself, the link is in the description below. If you already have one, get in the comments below. If you've got any questions for us, if you'd like us to give you any kind of drills or demos with them, then make sure to just ask. And apart from that, we'll see you all next week. But of course, we'll see you Monday.